Ames, please welcome the next President of the United States, Marco Rubio.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so honored you would be here. Thank you very much for being a part of it. Let me clear a couple things up. Jack is right. It's going to be at a church or a school near your home. But I had somebody at the last event said, any church or school? I go, no, it's got to be the one that you're supposed to caucus at. So make sure you find out the right one. And this is important. Well, I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm obviously both touched and overwhelmed by the number of people that are here. I thank you all for coming today. But I know you're here because you take very seriously the role you play. In about 48 hours, the people of Iowa will be the first Americans that will get a chance to ask perhaps the most important question of this generation. What kind of country will America be in the 21st century? For the 20th century and for 200 years, America's been a special country, an exceptional country, unlike any in the history of the world. I believe that began when we were founded on a powerful truth that our rights don't come from government. Our rights don't come from our laws. Our rights don't come from our leaders. Our rights come from God. Our rights come from our Creator. This is why we embrace free enterprise, and it made us the most prosperous people in the history of the world. This is why we embraced individual liberty. It made us the freest people ever. That's why the American example, the American dream, has inspired millions of people all over the world to pursue it both here and in their own homelands. But now all of those things are in question. A growing number of Americans are starting to doubt what kind of country we will be in the 21st century, because many of the things that made us unique and special are now threatened. I saw a poll recently. It said that over 50% of young Americans, of millennials, when asked, is the American dream still alive, over 50% said, no, we think it's not. If that were ever to become true, America stops being a special nation. So when was the moment when the American dream began to erode? When was the moment when all the things that made America special began to slip away? Well, I think I can point to one moment in particular. And it's the, yeah. No, not Super Bowl 42. Somebody said Super Bowl. I don't even know who played in Super Bowl 42. But it wasn't the Miami Dolphins, I can tell you that. I think we can point to the year 2008, when this nation elected a president not interested in fixing America's problems. For the first time in my lifetime, and maybe in our history, we elected a president dedicated to changing America. Changing America. Not changing our problems, changing the country, changing our government's role in our lives, changing America's role in the world. And the result has been what we've seen the last 7 years. A president who summarily and regularly undermines the Constitution of the United States in a lawless way. A president who assaults the Second Amendment. A president who assaults our religious liberties. A president who views America as an arrogant global power that needs to be cut down to size. That's how you get a president that cuts deals with our enemies like Iran, that undermines our allies like Israel, that guts our military. A president that apologizes for America. It is not easy to win a Nobel Peace Prize 3 months after taking office without doing anything. It takes a president that believes America needs to be cut down to size. And that's what we've had. And the result is a real growing frustration. And an anger that I would say is not just at Democrats, it's also angry at Republicans, angry at Washington. This anger is not new. It's been around for a while. This frustration's been building for a while. I saw it in 2010. It's why I ran for the U.S. Senate. I was a private citizen. My opponent was the sitting governor of Florida, who said he was a Republican, but I knew he wasn't. Who said that he wanted to go to Washington and oppose Barack Obama, but I knew he would go up and embrace Barack Obama's agenda. So I decided to run for the Senate. The leadership of the Republican Party in Washington, the entire Senate leadership, told me I couldn't run, and that if I did, they would go against me. But I ran, and we won. Almost the same people came forward this time in 2015 and said, you can't run for president. I said, why? He said, because you have to wait in line to wait your turn. I said, after 7 years of Barack Obama, this is no time for patience. This is a time for urgency. This is a time for action, because if we get this election wrong, there may be no turning back for America. We cannot afford to lose this election. We cannot afford to wake up on the first Wednesday in November to the news that Bernie Sanders has been elected President of the United States. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Usually that's a slur. Actually, he calls himself a socialist. Not a slur. I think Bernie Sanders is a good candidate for president of Sweden. You know what I was going to say. Now let me just say something to you. Hold on. I had an event last night. There was these 3 young men from Sweden. Really nice people. I felt really bad. No, seriously, they're very nice people. I don't have anything. I like Sweden. I just don't want to be Sweden, but I like Sweden. But they came up to me, and I thought they were going to be angry, and they said, "Why would you wish that on our country?" Another person said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Sweden doesn't have a president. They have a king, a prime minister." I said, "I know, but if they did, it would be Bernie Sanders." So anyway, my point is that we can't elect a socialist as president. And we can't elect Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was asked earlier this week in Iowa, a couple days ago, they asked her, what do you think about nominating Barack Obama to the Supreme Court? She said, "What a wonderful idea. I never heard that before." Can you imagine? This guy violates the Constitution like as part of his job description as president. And we're going to put him on the Supreme Court to interpret and apply it? So we cannot lose this election. So I'm here today to ask you to caucus for me on Monday, because I am the conservative that will beat Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, and they know it. They know it. That's why they spend so much time attacking me. Hillary Clinton does not want to run against me. I cannot wait to run against Hillary Clinton. And here's how we'll win. First, we are going to unite the Republican Party and, more importantly, the conservative movement. We're going to have our primary, and it's going to get heated. But in the end, we are going to bring everyone together. We have to. We cannot win if we are divided against each other. We cannot win if we're divided against each other. Now, we're in the last couple of days of a campaign, and you know what happens in the last couple of days of a campaign, right? The desperation kicks in. The kitchen sink comes out and is thrown at you. I mean, Ted Cruz is running an ad that literally edits a video, like cuts my words off in half to discredit what I'm saying, to distort what I'm saying, discredited attack. We know these things are going to happen. None of it bothers me. You've seen it before here in Iowa. So we're going to go through all of this. But we're going to bring the conservative movement together. We're going to unite this party quickly, because we can't win if we're divided against each other. But being united alone will not be enough. We have to grow the conservative movement. And that means we have to go out to people that haven't voted for a conservative or a Republican in a long time and convince them of the truth, that they would be better off and our country would be better off with us instead of with the other side. And I look forward with passion to making that argument. I look forward to reaching out to Americans, for example, that are living paycheck to paycheck, because I grew up paycheck to paycheck. My father was a bartender. My mother was a stock clerk at Kmart. She was a maid. She was a cashier. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, because I grew up paycheck to paycheck. I have lived paycheck to paycheck. And people in my family still live paycheck to paycheck. They're teachers and nurses, firefighters, and they struggle because everything costs more and the jobs just don't pay enough anymore. Hillary Clinton can't lecture me about people living paycheck to paycheck. I can't wait for that debate. I intend to go out and talk to young Americans staggering under the weight of student loans. A 500% increase in student loans in the last 10 years. People graduating with thousands and thousands of dollars that they borrowed to pay for a degree that didn't lead to a job. They cannot lecture me about student loans. You know why? Because I had a student loan. I had a student loan like 3 years ago. I never thought I'd pay it off. The only way to get rid of a student loan is either you pay it or you die. You can't even get rid of it in bankruptcy. I was able to pay it because I wrote a book. It's called An American Son, now available on paperback, in case you Yeah, I'm trying to sell a few books along the way because I don't want my kids to have loans, okay? If it hadn't been for that, I'd still have that loan. I remember when Jeanette and I first got married, my student loan was the second biggest item in our budget, right after the rent and more than the car and everything else. They can't lecture me about this issue. That's why I spent so much time talking about it. In fact, I'm the only Republican that ever talks about it. I look forward to campaigning among families that are raising children in the 21st century. They can't lecture me about that, because Jeanette and I are raising 4 children in the 21st century. And we know how hard it is, perhaps harder than ever, to raise your children with the values that you try to teach in your home and in your church, instead of the values they keep trying to ram down our throat in the popular culture. If you caucus for me, we will win this nomination. We will unite the Republican Party. We will expand the conservative movement, and we will defeat Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and then we will turn this country around. And here's how. I want to talk about a few of the things we'll do when I'm president. You deserve to know that. It's not enough to just be angry. We have a right to be angry. You have a right to be frustrated. Your leaders, your government, Washington, D.C., have failed you, and they have failed you in both parties for longer than 7 years, although the last 7 years have been the worst. You have a right to be angry. But anger is not a plan. Anger is not a solution. It can be a motivator. Anger may lead you to take action, but you have to take action. You deserve to know what the next president of the United States, the next commander-in-chief is going to do if you trust them with your vote. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the oath of office, which means I'm going to place my left hand on the Bible and my right hand in the air, and I am going to swear to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and unlike Barack Obama, I will actually mean it. That means I will defend and not undermine the Second Amendment, because you have a constitutional right to be able to protect yourself and your family from criminals and from terrorists. We will protect the Second Amendment. We will protect religious liberty. Every American has the constitutional right to live out the teachings of their faith, both at home and in their work, and in every aspect of their lives. After I'm done taking the oath of office, I'm going straight to the Oval Office. And when I get into the Oval Office, I am going to immediately repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. What does that mean? It means that all these crazy EPA rules on my first day in office, they're gone. It means this effort by the federal government to take over our schools through things like Common Core, on my first day in office, that ends. That means the use of federal taxpayer money to pay for abortions overseas, that stops on my first day in office. And on my first day in office, everyone in the world will know that America is once again on Israel's side, and here's how. Because on my first day in office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with Iran. My first day there. We are going to re-energize our economy. Today it is flatlined because government is taking it over. We will stop that and re-embrace free enterprise. We're going to fix our tax code. We're going to roll back regulations. We're going to save Social Security and Medicare. We're going to help bring our budgets under control. We're going to fully utilize our energy resources. And here's what's going to happen when we do all of that. There will be no better place in the world to start a business or expand an existing one. America will be the best economy in the world to create the best paying jobs of the new 21st century economy. We are going to deal with health care. Everybody running for president as a Republican is against Obamacare. I am the only one running for president that's ever done anything meaningful about it. Because when they created Obamacare, they created a bailout fund. They wanted to use your taxpayer money to bail out private insurance companies that lost money under Obamacare. In 2014, I led the effort, and we wiped out that bailout fund. And now some of the experts who like Obamacare are saying, oh, what he did is terrible, it's going to lead to Obamacare's collapse. Yes, I hope so. But whether it does or doesn't, when I am President of the United States, we are getting rid of Obamacare once and for all, and we are going to put you and the American people back in charge of their own health care decisions. I have a plan to replace Obamacare. It's on our website. It's clearly laid out, and you will see that it works. It's better than what we had before Obamacare, and it is a lot better than Obamacare. You probably already know this by now, but my parents weren't from this country. My father, my mother were immigrants. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife's entire family were immigrants. I was born in a community of immigrants. I was raised in a community of immigrants. This is an issue that I understand personally and I understand deeply. In the 21st century, our number one priority when it comes to immigration, before anything else, is to keep ISIS out of America. It's a threat we didn't face before. But now we're going to have to do things a little differently. Because there is a well-organized, well-funded, and sophisticated radical jihadist group that would like to send people into the United States as killers, but disguised as immigrants or as a refugee or something else. And so the world has changed, and we're going to have to change. This is not a religious test. It's not about discrimination. It's about common sense. It's about public safety. That's why when I am President of the United States, unless we know who you are and why you are coming, you are not getting into the United States of America. I'm also tired of being told that securing our border is anti-immigrant. That's a lie. Securing our borders and enforcing immigration laws is what sovereign countries do. And when I'm president, we will. For example, instead of hiring 20,000 new IRS agents, we are going to hire 20,000 new border agents. We're going to finish the 700 miles of fencing and walls that we know we need. We're going to have a mandatory E-Verify system, so that if you're here illegally, you won't be able to get hired, and shut off the jobs magnet. We're going to have an entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays, because people overstaying visas, that's 40 to 50% of the problem right there. If we do these things, you will bring illegal immigration under control, and we're not doing anything else on immigration until that's in place and that's working, and the federal government has won the confidence of the American people that, in fact, our illegal immigration problem is under control for the first time in 30 years and once and for all. And then we'll deal with the rest of it, not amnesty. Not amnesty. Illegal immigrants who are criminals and are dangerous will be immediately deported, and sanctuary cities, when I'm president, they will lose their federal funding. My most important job when elected president will be to be the commander-in-chief of this great country. It is the reason why we have a federal government. The world today is more dangerous than it was 7 years ago. And I'm sad to say our country is less safe. More dangerous because there's a lunatic in North Korea with nuclear weapons. The Chinese steal our secrets, are massively building up their military. The Chinese government. We have no quarrel with the Chinese people. The Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, is stealing our secrets, building up their military, taking over the South China Sea. Vladimir Putin is sowing instability in the Middle East, in Europe. Iran is about to receive $100 billion from Barack Obama's sanctions relief, which they will use to build up their military and one day acquire a nuclear weapon of their own. And ISIS is the most sophisticated and well-funded terror threat in the history of mankind. ISIS is not just a bunch of people on the back of pickup trucks, the way the president described them at the State of the Union. ISIS is an organization that has affiliates now in over a dozen countries. ISIS is now conducting operations in Indonesia, in the Philippines, and in multiple other countries. You saw what ISIS did in Paris. You saw what they inspired in San Bernardino. This is a group that burns people alive in cages. This is a group that takes little girls that are 9 and 10 years old and sells them off as brides to their fighters. This is what we are dealing with here. In the face of all of these threats, what is happening to our military? Let me tell you what's happening to our military. We are on the verge of the smallest army since the end of World War II. We are on the verge of the smallest Navy we have had in 100 years. And we will soon have the smallest Air Force and the oldest airplanes we have ever had. So the world is growing more dangerous and our military is growing weaker. Here's what's really unacceptable. There are people running for president in the party of Reagan who have voted for budgets that brag about cutting defense spending even more. This is unacceptable. Now, maybe some of you don't agree with me on defense spending, but I'm going to be very frank with you. When I am president of the United States, we are not cutting the military. We are rebuilding the U.S. military because the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest military in the world. By the way, these defense cuts aren't just dangerous, they're unfair to our men and women in uniform. We are still putting them in harm's way, but we're not providing the resources or, for that matter, the rules of engagement that allow them to succeed. That ends when I'm president. When I'm president, we're going to have a real war on terror. And here's what it's going to look like. It's not a complicated war. Here's what it's going to look like. The best intelligence agencies in the world are going to tell us where the terrorists are. And then the best military in the world that we're going to rebuild is going to destroy the terrorists. And if we capture any of these terrorists alive, they're not going to get a lawyer. They're not going to be told they have a right to remain silent. They're not getting a court hearing in Manhattan. If we capture them alive, they're getting a one-way ticket to Guantanamo. And we're going to find out everything that they know. Everything that they know. And we're going to take care of our veterans. And let me just stop at this moment and say that if you are a member of the armed forces or have you served our country in uniform, everybody here thanks you for your service to the United States of America. Let me extend that gratitude to our police officers and to our firefighters who have... Because when ISIS struck in San Bernardino, it was the firefighters and police officers that responded and saved lives. And me, for one, I'm tired of reading all this stuff about, oh, the police officers are so bad. Let me tell you who the police officers and the firefighters are. They are the people we will call tonight if something bad happens in our lives. And they are willing to die so that we can be safe. And so we thank them as well for what they do for our country. We are going to take care of our veterans. We're not doing that now. What's happening now is immoral. Immoral. We have a record number of veterans committing suicide, homeless, unemployed, and waiting in long lines for the care they earned and deserve. When I'm president, that ends. When I'm president, if you're not doing a good job at the VA, you will be fired. And when I'm president, our veterans will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that they choose. Any hospital or any doctor, not just the one the government tells them. There's a lot more work to be done, and I am proud that in this campaign, of all the Republicans, I have outlined more detailed policy than anyone. It's on our website, marcorubio.com. I encourage you to go on and see our solutions on the debt, on how we're going to fix Social Security and Medicare and save it for future generations, on how we're going to rebuild our military, about higher education, an issue I care about a lot because its cost has gotten out of control. Higher education is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. We have detailed policies on all these things, and they're outlined on our website. And if you have specific questions, email us and we'll answer them. Because we think that's what this is about, the ideas that will help turn this country around. But I want to close by ending where I began, by talking about the consequences of this election. This election is not simply a choice between two political parties. This election's a referendum. It literally is a referendum on our identity as a nation and as a people. We must now decide what kind of country will America be in this new century. And for me, this is a deeply personal question. Because America isn't just the country I was born in. It's the country that literally changed the history of my family. When my parents came here in 1956, they didn't know anyone. They had a few relatives living here. They had no money, not much of an education. My father actually stopped going to school when he was 9 because his mother died. So he had to go work, and he had to stop going to school. He never went back to school, but he would work for the next 70 years of his life. When my parents came here, they worked really hard. They were discouraged. It was hard. This notion that you get here and it's instant success, it's just not true. It was hard, and they were discouraged, but they persevered. The truth is, my parents never became rich or famous people. They never made a lot of money, and you never would have heard of them had I not run for office and mentioned them. My parents were not rich or famous, but they were successful. They lived the American dream. Here's why. Less than 10 years after my parents arrived, they owned a home. Not a mansion, but they owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood, working as a bartender. They were able to raise 4 children. They were able to retire with dignity and security. And most important of all for my parents, they were able to leave all 4 of their children better off than themselves. That story would have been impossible almost anywhere else on this planet. In fact, anywhere else on this planet. If my parents had taken their dreams and their hopes to any other nation, I'm not sure where I would be right now, but I would not be standing on a stage running for the highest office in the land. I thank God every day they came here, to the one place on earth where what they did was possible. And it was possible because America is truly exceptional. What we have in this country, never take for granted. Know that what was given to us is an incredible gift, the single greatest nation in the history of mankind, a place where hard work and perseverance allows you to fulfill your potential. In the history of mankind, almost everyone has been born into a society that tells you what you're allowed to be. Unless your parents are rich, unless they're politically connected, you are limited by how far you can go. Not here, because we're special. Why did that happen? America's not special by accident. This didn't happen on its own. America is special because for over 200 years, each generation in our history did their part. For over 200 years, each generation in this country confronted their challenges and embraced their opportunities. Now the time has come for us to do the same. If we fail in this endeavor, then it means someone like Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders has won. And if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders wins, all the damage Barack Obama has done to America becomes permanent. Obamacare, if they win, is here to stay. Those unconstitutional executive orders, they're here to stay. These cuts to our military, they continue. Our standing in the world, it continues to erode. The Second Amendment, our rights will continue to erode. If they win, everything that Barack Obama has done remains in place and worse. Hillary Clinton in particular cannot be the President of the United States. Hillary Clinton is not qualified to be Commander-in-Chief. She stored classified information on her private server because she believes she is above the law. She believes that she's above the law. In fact, the information is so classified they cannot even release the emails. Hillary Clinton cannot be the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And she can't be the Commander-in-Chief because she lied to the families of those people who lost their lives in Benghazi. She knew that was a coordinated terrorist attack. We know she knew because she was telling everyone that, except the families of the victims. Anyone who lies to the families of people who died in the service of this country can never be the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. And so the time has come, not just to choose in Iowa, but to choose in this generation. Are we willing to do what needs to be done? Is this generation prepared to do what those who came before us did? If we are, I believe this nation can be greater than it's ever been. If we fail, our children will be the first Americans in history to inherit a country worse off than their parents. And I'm telling you this, if you caucus for me, I will be our president, and this generation will do its part. If you elect me as President of the United States, we will re-embrace the principles that made America great, and we will apply them to the unique challenges of this new century. And if we do what needs to be done, here's what history will write of us. Here's what history will say about this moment in American history. Here's what history will say about you and I. It will say that this generation of Americans lived in the early years of this new century in a troubling and uncertain time. But like each generation before us, we rose up to the challenge. We confronted our problems. We solved them. We embraced our opportunities. We did what needed to be done. Like the Americans that came before us, we did what needed to be done. And because we did, the American dream didn't just survive. It reached more people. It changed more lives than ever before. Our children became the freest and the most prosperous Americans that had ever lived. And the 21st century wasn't just as good as the 20th century. It was better. It was a new American century. This is the opportunity before us, and we must seize it now. For we still have time to get it right, but we do not have forever. We must act now, in this time, at this turning point in our history. And that's why I'm here to ask you to caucus for me Monday night. If you're convinced and you want to join our team before you leave, please sign up. We need your help. We want to stay in touch with you for the next 48 hours. I always tell people we're not going to bombard you with emails. It's not true. We are. For like 48 hours. But only for 48 hours, because we want to make sure you go caucus. And then we're going to leave you alone for a little while. We'll stay in touch, but not every day. Until September. You know why? Because when I'm our nominee, we're coming back to Iowa. We're going to win the state in a general election, and we're going to ensure that our children inherit what they deserve. The greatest country in the history of all mankind. Thank you for having me. God bless all of you.